We tend to think nations collapse because of outside threats, but history shows something more dangerous: collapse that starts from within, when law becomes optional. Long before he was president, Abraham Lincoln warned us that this is how free nations come apart.
In January of 1838, a 28-year-old Illinois legislator addressed a small audience in Springfield. The nation was young, expanding rapidly, and increasingly restless. Acts of mob violence were becoming common, often justified as expressions of popular anger rather than lawlessness. He warned that when citizens excuse lawlessness because it serves their side, they teach the next generation that rules are conditional. And once that lesson is learned, it cannot easily be unlearned. Lincoln argued that repeated exposure to violence changes a people. What first shocks the conscience can, over time, become familiar, and what becomes familiar eventually becomes tolerated. Lincoln did not speak to a single riot, faction, or political moment. He was describing a pattern, one that appears whenever order is treated as optional and restraint as weakness. For Lincoln, the survival of the Republic depended not on passion, but on discipline, and on a public unwilling to let chaos become ordinary. The speech became known as the Lyceum Address. Though framed as a warning about public disorder, it was also a meditation on something deeper: how free societies decay not from foreign invasion, but from the gradual erosion of respect for law.
Mr. Lincoln, when you warned that a republic could destroy itself by losing respect for law, you were speaking in theory. Today, we are seeing something more concrete: states and cities openly declaring that they will not cooperate with federal law, particularly on immigration, and calling themselves sanctuaries. Is that simply disagreement within a federal system, or is it something more dangerous?
Disagreement within a republic is not only inevitable, it is healthy. Laws are debated, amended, and sometimes repealed because citizens are free to argue about them. But there is a critical difference between disagreement and defiance. When those entrusted with enforcing the law decide, as a matter of policy, that certain laws will simply not be carried out, they teach the people a dangerous lesson: that obedience is optional and that authority is conditional. A republic does not fail all at once. It weakens when respect for law becomes selective, when enforcement depends not on statute, but on sentiment, and when citizens learn that the rules mean different things in different places. That kind of disorder is quieter than rebellion, but it is more corrosive. It spreads by example. Once the habit of obedience is broken in one area, it rarely remains confined to it.
But that is not theoretical, sir. Today, there are states and cities that openly refuse to cooperate with federal law, and in some cases, actively resist it, particularly on immigration. By your definition, is that defiance already taking place?
Your question, Buzz, goes to the heart of the matter. If officials merely decline to assist in enforcing a federal law, that may be unwise, but it remains a disagreement within the structure of the Union. But when officials go further, when they actively obstruct federal officers, shield violations under color of authority, or declare certain laws null within their jurisdiction, the matter changes in character. That is no longer protest. It is defiance. A nation cannot endure if each locality decides which national laws it will honor. That principle was tested in my own time, and the lesson was a hard one. Tolerating defiance in the name of harmony only spreads it. Compassion does not require the abandonment of law. A republic may welcome the stranger and still insist upon order. But when enforcement becomes optional, authority dissolves, and the cost of restoring it later is always higher than the cost of maintaining it at the start. Federal law must therefore be enforced by federal means, firmly, lawfully, and without spectacle, until resistance becomes unworkable, and obedience routine again. That is not cruelty. It is the minimum condition of self-government.
Lincoln did not warn us that America would fall because we disagreed. He warned that it would fall if we stopped believing that the law binds everyone, especially those entrusted to enforce it. The question before us is not whether we have compassion or whether we care about people. The question is whether we still believe that a nation can remain free when obedience to law becomes selective. Lincoln's warning was not about his time. It was about ours.